My close friend blocked me everywhere without warning. What do I do? I never thought I'd find myself posting this kind of thing online, but here I am, on my alt account, because sometimes life throws you curveballs you never see coming. My main account is too well known among my friends and acquaintances, and I need a space to process this without everyone in my life knowing. So, here it goes. I'm 34 years old, working in a competitive industry in a bustling city. About 4 years ago, I met someone at work who quickly became a close friend. Let's call her Jane. Jane is 41, vibrant, witty, and had this knack for making you feel like you were the only person in the room when she talked to you. We clicked almost instantly, our shared humor and mutual respect for each other's work drawing us together like magnets. In the second and third years of our friendship, Jane and I were practically inseparable. We shared secrets, dreams, and fears over countless cups of coffee and long, winding dinners. We were each other's confidants, sounding boards, and cheerleaders. She was the person I turned to when work was overwhelming or when life outside the office got too complicated. But, as they say, nothing lasts forever. About a year ago, I decided to leave that job. I needed a change, a new challenge, and it felt like the right time to move on. Despite the change in our daily routines, Jane and I stayed close. We continued to meet up regularly, still going for our one-on-one dinners and attending events with our mutual friends. It felt like our friendship was solid, a constant in a sea of change. However, as the months went by, I started to notice subtle shifts. At the beginning of this year, Jane removed herself from a few group chats we were both a part of. I didn't think much of it at the time. People leave group chats for all sorts of reasons, right? Maybe she was trying to cut down on distractions or was overwhelmed by the constant notifications. She still messaged me personally, so I figured everything was fine. But then she started declining my invitations. Each time I asked her to join me for an event or a dinner, she would politely decline, always with a kind excuse like, "Oh, thanks so much for the invite, but I already have plans." It was obvious that we were growing more distant, but I tried not to let it bother me too much. Friendships ebb and flow, and I knew that sometimes people just need space. The turning point came at an industry event we both attended recently. I was sitting at a table with some of our mutual friends when Jane walked in. She saw me, I know she did, but she didn't say hi or acknowledge me in any way. The air around us felt heavy, charged with an awkward tension that our friends picked up on. They noticed her cold demeanor and asked me about it, but I had no answers to give them. Confused and hurt, I decided to reach out to Jane through social media to check in and see what was going on. That's when I discovered she had blocked me on everything. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you name it, I was blocked. It felt like a punch to the gut. We were still part of a few group chats, but she hadn't removed herself from those. It was like she wanted to make a point but didn't want to make a scene in front of others. I sat there staring at my phone, my mind racing with questions. What had I done to deserve this? Was there some incident I had missed? Had I unknowingly hurt her in some way? I went over our interactions again and again, searching for a clue, but I came up empty. There was no obvious falling out, no argument, no betrayal. It was as if she had decided to cut me out of her life without any warning or explanation. I tried to remind myself that people grow apart. It's a natural part of life, but this felt different. It wasn't just a drifting apart. It was a deliberate, painful severing of ties, and it left me reeling. I didn't need to salvage the friendship, especially in light of the clear boundary Jane had set. But I was struggling with the abruptness of it all, with being cut out and given the cold shoulder so suddenly. The worst part was not knowing why. The uncertainty gnawed at me, making it hard to focus on anything else. It sent me into a bit of a spiral, questioning everything, the way I presented myself, my other friendships, even my self-worth. I found myself ruminating on Jane's actions, trying to make sense of them, but only ending up more confused and hurt. So, I'm here, reaching out to the anonymous wisdom of the internet, looking for advice on how to cope with this situation. How do you deal with being blocked and cut out by someone you once considered a close friend, especially when there's no clear reason for it? How do you move on from the hurt and confusion? If you've ever experienced something similar, I'd love to hear how you dealt with it. Did you find closure, or did you have to make your own peace with the situation? How did you stop yourself from ruminating and start focusing on the positive aspects of your life? I know I need to let go and move on, but right now, I'm finding it hard to do so. The pain is still fresh, and the questions are still unanswered. Any advice or words of wisdom would be greatly appreciated. As I sat there, staring at the empty chat screen where our messages used to flow freely, I couldn't help but replay the past few months in my head. There were no angry words, no betrayal, no incident that stood out as the cause of this sudden rift. It was as if Jane had quietly decided to walk out of my life without leaving any clues behind. I thought about our last few interactions, searching for any sign that I might have missed. Had I said something wrong? Did I unknowingly hurt her feelings? The more I thought about it, the more elusive the answers became. It was like trying to catch smoke with my bare hands. The feeling of being blocked on social media was strangely disorienting. In today's world, being blocked felt like a modern form of ostracism, a digital cold shoulder that stung just as much as a physical one. It was as if Jane had erased me from her digital life, leaving me to wonder what had gone so terribly wrong. Days turned into weeks, and the unanswered questions continued to haunt me. I found myself questioning everything about our friendship. Had it all been an illusion? Were there signs that I had missed along the way? I replayed our conversations in my mind, looking for any hint of discontent or frustration on her part. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't find anything that explained her sudden departure. My friends noticed the change in me. They could see that I was struggling, even if I tried to hide it behind a forced smile. "What's wrong?" they would ask, their concern genuine. But how could I explain something I didn't fully understand myself? How could I articulate the pain of losing a friend without knowing why? As the days passed, I realized that I needed to find a way to cope with this situation. I couldn't let it consume me. I started by reaching out to other friends, seeking their advice and support. Some of them had experienced similar situations, and their words of wisdom provided some comfort. One friend told me, "Sometimes people drift away, and it's not always about something you did. It could be something they're going through." Another friend suggested, "Maybe she just needs space right now. Give her time, and she might come around." Their words were kind, but they didn't fill the void that Jane's absence had left in my life. I also turned to self-care, trying to focus on the things that brought me joy and peace. I started journaling, pouring my thoughts and feelings onto the pages in an attempt to make sense of them. Writing became a form of therapy, a way to process the pain and confusion that had been building up inside me. I spent more time outdoors, taking long walks in the park and immersing myself in nature. The fresh air and the beauty of the natural world provided a welcome distraction from my troubled mind. I also picked up old hobbies that I had neglected, like painting and reading. These activities gave me a sense of purpose and helped me reconnect with myself. But despite my efforts, the hurt lingered. There were nights when I would lie awake, replaying the events in my mind, hoping that I would somehow stumble upon the answer. I wanted closure, a sense of finality that would allow me to move on. But as time went on, I realized that closure might never come. I had to find a way to accept that. One evening, as I sat on my balcony watching the sunset, I had a moment of clarity. I realized that I might never understand why Jane had blocked me and cut me out of her life. And that was okay. Sometimes, we have to accept that not everything has an explanation. People change, circumstances change, and sometimes friendships end without a clear reason. It was a hard pill to swallow, but it was also liberating. I decided that I needed to focus on the present and the future, rather than dwelling on the past. I needed to nurture the friendships that were still strong and build new connections with people who valued and respected me. I also made a promise to myself to be more mindful of my own actions and to communicate openly with my friends. If there were issues or misunderstandings, I would address them head-on, rather than letting them fester. I didn't want to find myself in a similar situation again, wondering what went wrong. Slowly but surely, I began to heal. The pain of losing Jane didn't disappear overnight, but it became more manageable. I learned to let go of the need for answers and to trust that things would work out in their own way. I focused on the positive aspects of my life, the people who cared about me, and the opportunities that lay ahead. And as I moved forward, I carried with me the lessons I had learned from this experience. I realized that friendships, like all relationships, require effort and understanding. They can be fragile, but they can also be incredibly rewarding. And sometimes, even when things don't go as planned, we can find strength and growth in the journey. So, here I am, still navigating the complexities of life and relationships, but with a renewed sense of resilience. I may never know why Jane chose to block me, but I have learned to accept that and to find peace within myself. And in the end, that's what truly matters.